Hello again, and welcome to What the Papers Are Saying, coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. On What the Papers Are Saying, we bring you the conversation, the discussions, and the analysis of the stories as presented by our colleagues within the media space. So this week, a number of issues have dominated media conversations or media discussion. Let's start with what happened at the Jubilee House some few days ago, where the Asante-Hene Otumfuo Osei Tutu presented his report. As you are aware, former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo appointed the then President of the Republic, appointed Otumfuo the Asante-Hene to mediate in the Boko crisis, the raging conflict that has engulfed this particular area for some decades now. And then when Nana Akufo-Addo left, President John Dramani Mahama asked the Otumfuo to continue with the mediation process. It ended somewhere in November of last month. And this week, the Otumfuo presented the final report of the mediation to President John Dramani Mahama at the Jubilee House. And that is how the Informer newspaper published the story. It says, Boko mediation report must bind all parties. Otumfuo. The Chronicle newspaper says, at long last, Boko finds peace. The Ghanaian Times newspaper published the story this way. It says, Boko conflict. President Mahama calls for calm after Otumfuo committee presents reports. City Newsroom, government backs Otumfuo mediation, rolls out 1 billion cedi for Boko as far as its development is concerned. This week as well, the Supreme Court was in the news and is related to the Kpandai rerun. As you're aware, a high court in Tamale ordered the Electoral Commission to conduct fresh elections, fresh parliamentary election in the Kpandai constituency because of some irregularities recorded in the December 2024 elections in that constituency. The MPP, who was not happy because the seat belongs to the party, took the matter to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that the Electoral Commission should suspend every plan or every activity leading to the rerun of the election. So the Electoral Commission has slated December 30th, 2025 to rerun the election in the Kpandai constituency. This week, the Supreme Court of the Republic says the Electoral Commission to suspend every activity as far as the Kpandai by-election is concerned. And that is how the Daily Guide newspaper published the story. Supreme Court blocks Kpandai election rerun. The Ghanaian publisher also says Supreme Court holds Kpandai election rerun. Channel 1 News says Kpandai ruling, we knew justice will prevail, NPP. This week as well, the former finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta was in the news, as well as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. It has to do with the extradition of the former finance minister from the USA to come to Ghana to face prosecution. As you're aware, the Office of the Special Prosecutor is prosecuting the former finance minister and some officials of SML in connection with some contract which the Special Prosecutor believe caused some financial loss to the state. At a news conference on Thursday, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General addressed journalists and said that indeed the processes and documentations have been sent to the US government seeking that the finance minister will be allowed to come to Ghana so prosecution will take place. And that is how the new publisher ran the story. He said, Akufo-Addo, I am not begging Mahama to protect Ofori-Atta. City Newsroom says, AG transmits extradition request for Ofori-Atta to US authorities. This week as well, Parliament passed the bill legalizing the operations of Okada or Pragya, as we call it in this country. A number of media houses published the story, and that is how City Newsroom published. It says, Ibrahim Eje support Okada bill to save lives and create jobs. Channel 1 Newsroom says, Okada legalization restrict Pragya from operations in the Central Business District highways, Elikem Kotoko. This week as well, Ghana sent some 54 troops to Jamaica to help in the rebuilding and reconstruction of the country after the country was hit massively by Hurricane Melissa. And that is how Channel 1 News published a story. It says, Mahama deploys Ghana Army engineers to Jamaica after hurricane. A City Newsroom, minority demands explanation for 10 million Ghana cedi relief aid to Jamaica and Cuba. So these are the stories that dominated media conversations in the course of the week. When I come back from the break, I'll introduce my colleagues who will join me with this conversation and we'll kickstart it.
Behind every closed door, a secret is waiting to explode.
Always been regarded as a useful and a sound party person. So I gather there's a fair chance of me making the office, provided we don't get into trouble. So don't start any trouble with the police.
Detective Calls, an intriguing stage play brought to life on television, where every clue matters and every character is a potential suspect.
About 2 hours ago, a young woman died at the police hospital.
This will take only the service of a fierce and yielding and sharp as steel detective to uncover the truth behind this web of lies and betrayal.
And so, you used the power you had as the daughter of a good customer and also that of a powerful, politically connected man in the town to punish the girl.
Why didn't you come to me when you realized you were in such a mess?
Because you are not the kind of father a chap could come to when they are in trouble, that's why.
Hey, don't talk to me like that.
Grow from Image Bureau Productions. Detective Calls coming soon on Channel 1 TV. It's time to promote volunteerism, active citizenship, and patriotism in Ghanaian society,
where we shine the spotlight on the unsung heroes among us.
Today, we're not just launching a program, we're igniting a revolution of skills, dreams, and hope.
On Volunteers TV, we highlight and celebrate people and groups that are great examples to us all.
Every single region in Ghana, we're doing something.
Good.
So no one's being left behind.
Over 800 kids that come to school, so having an extra classroom, extra resources will be really, really beneficial.
If you're a volunteer, you're actually serving because you are giving up your time and resources for nothing in return.
Volunteers TV, Sunday at 6:30 p.m. only on Channel 1 TV.
You're welcome back. You're still watching What the Papers Are Saying, coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. I am Sammy Wiafe. As I mentioned earlier, two of my colleagues have joined me in the studio for us to have a conversation on the issues that dominated media discussions in the course of the week. Hansen Ajima, he's with us here at CTFM and Channel 1 Television, and Selom Adonu also here with us at CTFM and Channel 1 Television. Gentlemen, good evening and you're welcome.
Good evening, Sam.
Well, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice on Thursday addressed a press conference. It has to do with the former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. He says that all documents have been sent to the US for the extradition process for the final Finance Minister to be in the country to face prosecution in the SML issue.
Preliminary review. Our International Cooperation Unit observed that certain aspects of the request require clarification and enhancements to align with the applicable legal and procedural requirements. We communicated these observations to the Office of the Special Prosecutor via a letter dated 25th November 2025 and requested supplementary documentation to ensure completeness. On December 9th, 2025, the Office of the Special Prosecutor provided a requested additional documentation and addressed the observations that we raised, thereby finalizing the extradition request packages. Subsequently, on December 10, 2025, my office transmitted the complete request to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for onward transmission to the competent authorities in the United States of America. Other dockets have been completed and are awaiting review by my office prior to charges being filed. And I'm sure the Minister for Government Communications will confirm later that we have another announcement to make on Monday involving some high-profile, politically exposed persons that got themselves involved in certain criminal activities.
That's Ghana's Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayeni, speaking to journalists at the Jubilee House here in Accra. Hasan, I'll start with you. The conversation has already begun about the need to bring the former finance minister into the country to face prosecution on the SML matter. Now today, the AG has told us that the documentation, everything has been handed to the US authorities. So the onus now is on them to bring the former finance minister back into the country for prosecution.
You agree with me that this update is essential, particularly if you take cognizance of the initial back and forth between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and that of the Office of the Attorney General. For want of a better description, I'll say that entire conversation or supposed tussle or seeming tussle that was seen between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and that of the Attorney General was unnecessary. And so to hear the principal legal advisor of the state, the Attorney General, come out directly on what is being done and where the state is as far as extradition of Ken Ofori-Atta, I think is essential, to the point that this is a former finance minister. He superintended over our resources, and together with others, we are told that they facilitated the state losing in excess of 1.4 billion Ghana cedis, with some additional over 2 billion Ghana cedis to be paid again to SML if the issue had not been brought to the Office of the Special Prosecutor and investigations have not begun. And so bringing him in to answer is essential, but we also ought to be considerate of the fact that things will have to take due process. And that is why in situations like these, you would expect that the players within the space or the leaders who are leading the charge will be very careful with their mode of communication, and where they have a say, where they can solely do things, they will be bold to say that we are going to do this. But where their actions are dependent on the collaboration of others, they ought to be modest enough to admit that. And then also, in situations like this, education is key. Even though the Attorney General today touched on it briefly, he sought to clarify the point that when it comes to extradition, it is more, despite it being political, it also has a judiciary point where a court of competent jurisdiction will have to determine if indeed the person should be extradited. And that is not in the hands of any state agency in Ghana. And even on the political side, there should be the willingness on the part of the US authorities to allow or to say that they are bringing Ken Ofori-Atta to the country. And so if you don't enlighten the Ghanaian public on this essential process and where your powers are limited, like how we saw the special prosecutor in his press conference indicate that I'm going to bring Ken Ofori-Atta, and you are not able to bring Ken Ofori-Atta, you will get the reactions that Ghanaians made about the situation as though we are not doing anything about it. But the situation obviously is that you are powerless when it comes to certain aspects of it. But because you've not educated the public, communicated clearly to them on where your powers are limited, they will think that you are deliberately not doing so. And when we educate properly, we communicate properly, we let people know our powers, we let people know where we have limits, it helps to boost the perception around the fight against corruption and get the Ghanaian people on the side of state authorities who are fighting corruption. We know, and as a lot of people will say, corruption, when you begin to fight corruption will indeed fight you back. And so you need the perception and support of the Ghanaian people in times when it appears that things are not going well for you, that they could keep you going. And so for me, I say it's instrumental that the Attorney General was clear on what we are doing. He talked about the fact that Ken Ofori-Atta has had the best of lawyers to fight the extradition. Obviously, that is his right, but I also believe that, of course, he indicated that this will not in any way derail the efforts of the Ghanaian authorities. And I know that Ghana has equally competent or even better lawyers to fight in court and to make our case. And if indeed it merits for Ken Ofori-Atta to come to the country, we would be able to push our point forcefully. But there are those who said that extradition itself is a political matter again. And so we also expect that on the political level, there will be some engagement between the two states, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the AG, to be able to at least let the U.S. authorities understand how important it is for us to have Ken Ofori-Atta to stand trial. They came in asking for a number of Ghanaians who they say they've committed certain crimes allegedly. Some persons were initially given to U.S. authorities. They were taken to U.S. to be tried. The recent case of Abu Trika indicates that on the part of Ghana, we seem to be quick to help them when they need people extradited. And we need to use that as a trump card to tell them that, hey, this is a two-way affair. It's not a one-way affair that when you need, we will provide. But when we need, you would give a number of excuses and be indifferent about it. But finally on this, the pleas of all the accused persons, 6 of them, 5 individuals and 1 artificial being, that is the SML company, their pleas have been taken. This is just by way of update. And I think that we should not lose sight of that, because the people who are in there are equally important people that were entrusted with state power. And so we should follow it keenly. I mean, we have 2 former commissioners of the Ghana Revenue Authority. You have 2 former custom generals in there, and have a businessman and his company. These are people at the height of our revenue generation chain. And so the fact that Ken Ofori-Atta and his chef de cabinet are not in at the moment to stand trial does not mean that we should lose sight of the ongoing trial. And as I would always put it, it's a matter for prosecution to prove, and we hope that they'll be diligent with their evidence, do it right, and if indeed if these persons committed the offense they've been accused of, they should be made to go to or face the consequences. I mean, 1.4 billion Ghana cedis. That's the money we are talking about.
Yeah, a lot of money.
1.4 billion Ghana cedis. That's the money we are talking about. And in addition to that, they were going to pay additional over 2 billion Ghana cedis to them if the Office of the Special Prosecutor had not done the investigation. And so if indeed they've caused a financial loss to the state, they've used public office for profit, they've deliberately or indirectly influenced the procurement process for the award of a procurement contract, we need the state prosecutors to do their job right. And if at the end of the day the court says they are guilty, should they be. So should be it.
So, now that the Attorney General has told us that all documentation are sent to the US, now the US, should do the rest. Do we expect it to be as soon as possible?
No, not at all. It's a tall order. The fact that the AG has submitted some documentation to the US does not necessarily mean that Ken Ofori-Atta is going to come to Ghana. It's a long process. It's a tedious legal process. And Ken Ofori-Atta, knowing very well that when he comes to Ghana, he will have some difficulties, he will fight it. So he will fight it with the best of lawyers at his disposal. And so there are many exceptions to the extradition. The fact that you submitted an extradition request does not mean that you're going to have your subject. You are not. There are many exceptions. Some of them include
the fact that whether the offense they are dealing with is a political offense. Some offenses, treason, espionage, etc., and offenses that suggest that the person is being persecuted politically, that may be trumped up against a person, will not fly. So all the person needs to do is to put up a case suggesting that he is being wanted for a political matter, and that is enough to get Ghana denied of the extradition request. I mean, there could be concerns about inhumane treatment, human rights abuses, etc., that may be meted out to the person if the person is to be extradited to his country. So the subject will have to just raise concerns like that and show that he's likely to suffer these inhumane treatments if he is extradited to his country, and he may have a good day in court. Some nationals or some nations don't extradite their nationals. China, Germany, etc. It will be difficult to have them extradite their nationals. The way Ghana is easy to, it's quite willing to extradite its people. You know, some countries don't. The US is not part of. The US will work with you. So that's a good one. Also, if there's been prior proceedings in respect to the same matter, the person has been punished, actually similar to double jeopardy, you will not succeed in your extradition. These exceptions are put there to protect the subject, because the subject has rights. So it's the rules have been put together knowing that some nations or some governments can be so powerful that they will want to deal with their opponents who live in another country. So, for example, if it's clear that, or the person is able to show that is wanted for a political offense, it will be difficult to get the person extradited and things like that. So Ken will just have to put his acts together well and say, no, it's a political thing. And we've had, snippets of that. And once he puts it together well, it will be difficult to have him extradited. There's something we call request validity. You should have a documentation right. There should be sufficient evidence that you can connect him to this. That's why AG and OSP were bantering over the sufficiency or otherwise of the evidence they are putting together. Have you charged the person? You have not at the time, etc., etc. So those things are critical. If there's sufficient in the insufficient evidence, you may not succeed. So Ken must just put his act together properly and mount a strong defense against extradition in the US, and he may have his day. So it is not, it is not a done deal. And if you listen to the Attorney General carefully, he did not raise expectations. He said they've done what they would do. The rest is left to the US authorities. And Ken has the right to assemble the best lawyers possible. Yeah. And he can do that. I'm not sure money is a problem. he can do that. And worst case scenario, he may waste time. May waste a lot of time. Different regime may come, etc., etc. We've been trying to extradite, what's the name? Sedinam Ationu, since last year that the request was submitted. We still don't have it. And AG himself doesn't know when the process will terminate. So it's a long drawn out process. So the fact that the request has been submitted does not mean that Ken is going to come to Ghana. Ken will fight this. Because if he comes to Ghana and they charge him or he goes to court, you think the court will easily grant him bail. Because he may be a flight risk. And so he may be in custody for a long time. And what bail conditions would they give him? Look at the bail conditions people who even live in Ghana with less charges, have been slapped with. So he will fight it because he knows that the environment, perhaps by his own doing or not, is being poisoned against him. And everybody is now looking for him as the guy who has caused Ghana a lot of problems. Maybe so, maybe not. But he knows the gravity of the situation and he will fight it. I'm certain about that.
You're still watching what the papers are saying. Coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. My name is Sami Wiafe. With me tonight, Hansen Ajimai with us here at CTFM Channel 1 TV. And they just heard Stella Wadonu also with us here at CTFM Channel 1 TV. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll go to the Supreme Court on the ruling on the Kpandai rerun of the parliamentary election.
Christmas Eve. Skip the ordinary and step into the extraordinary. Welcome to the Situation All White Party 2025, where the music never stops, the energy never drops, and the fun never ends. Celebrating grand style with great music, irresistible food, and an atmosphere that screams good vibes only. Date 24th December 2025. Venue Good Park near the Accra Mall. Time 8 p.m. till late. Dress code, it's an all-white affair. Get ready for electrifying live performances from Kofi Kinata, Kwabua, Perez Music, Inchin Chin Band, and DJ Mingle. Your best all-white fit. Bring your dancing shoes and let's light up the night together. Book your tables now. Call 0205-973-973 or 0558-973-973. It's Christmas Eve. Don't miss it. The Situation All-White Party 2025 is powered by Channel 1 TV and 97.3 City FM, and it's proudly sponsored by EcoBank, Bethel Logistics, and Hallmark Cafe, and supported by Oswald Investment Limited and Verve du Vernet.
Welcome back. You're still watching what the papers are saying. Coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. I am Sami. We have two of my colleagues are with me in the studio, Hanson Ajimai and Solomon. We're looking at the news items or the media issues that dominated media conversations in the course of the. Just a while ago, we had a conversation on the decision of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice to officially present documents to the U.S. government for a possible extradition of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta in connection with the SML issue. This week or so, the Supreme Court gave a significant ruling. It has to do with the order of a Tamale High Court for the 2024 parliamentary election in the Kpandai constituency to be rerun. The Supreme Court says the Electoral Commission, which had issued an earlier notice announcing that on Tuesday, the 30th of December 2025 will be the date for the rerun, the Supreme Court says the Electoral Commission should hold on until the matter is dealt with. The NPP, with the New Patriotic Party, which vehemently opposed the decision of the Electoral Commission, says the ruling of the Supreme Court is victory for democracy, and for them, they knew that the party was going to win in this particular suit that they filed at the Supreme Court. Gentlemen, Hansen, I'll start with you. Was it something you were expecting that the Supreme Court was going to give this ruling on this matter, following how you have followed this issue from day one?
So, on the day of the case, when we got to the Supreme Court, the NDC was visibly absent.
They were not present in the court?
They were not present in court. And it's interesting because the night before...
Unlike in Tamale where they were all present in the court.
Yes, and then so the night before, I had spoken to some of the NDC executives, particularly from the election wing, who had just traveled from Kpandai to Accra. So in my interaction with them, I said, then we'll meet in court tomorrow. And were they thinking that all of them returned for the purpose of the hearing. But then when we got to the courtroom, they were visibly absent. And so in my communication with some of the lawyers for Martin Yindam, I got to understand that they were not able to serve the NDC's candidate, who was the plaintiff in the High Court case and the respondent in the matter at the Supreme Court. So, frankly speaking, my understanding and my expectation was that it was going to be a hearing on substituted service, and the court allowing the MPP candidate Matthew Nyindam to do a substituted service on the NDC candidate, which essentially will be to serve him through other means rather than serving him in person. But when Gary Nimako was arguing, he made a point that he had two motions that he wanted the court to hear. He gave a delivery, or he addressed the court on the request for substituted service, and in court the mode of the substituted service now became the concern. At a point in time, they had to give out the NDC's candidate's number for the court to be able to verify that indeed that was the candidate. They asked that Momo be sent to verify. Somebody attempted sending Momo, and became that, why don't you send the money so that there will be some trail to show that yes, you sent it. And indeed, I think they sent around 500 cedis or so.
Oh, okay.
And
free money.
And I was saying that the man will be there thinking, who has sent me? Who has sent me this money? But that's on the lighter note. So after the argument on the for the substituted service, the request for substituted service, and with the interaction between Gary and the panel, they were able to streamline three modes of serving him. That is posting the documents on the board, the notice board of the High Court in Tamale and the District Court in Kpandai, posting the documents on his residential facility in Kpandai, and also sending the documents to him on the WhatsApp number that had been made available to the court. So after giving that decision, then the presiding judge, Justice Gabriel Scott Powman, went on this thing, having looked at the statement of claim with the affidavit, having looked at the additional statement of claim with the affidavit. The court orders the Electoral Commission to halt all proceedings leading to, and I must say it was quite surprising for me, because I didn't, as I indicated, having had interactions with the MPP lawyers and having observed the absence of the NDC, it was my thinking that my expectation that this business was going to be restricted to the request for substituted service. But the court went further to look at the document and said, so on a prima facie level, to prevent the Electoral Commission from going ahead of the court, the Electoral Commission must halt all proceedings, because then the bench was going to adjourn the case to January 13. If that order was not given, what it will mean is that by the time the court will reconvene on January 13, the rerun would have been done on December 30. And I must say, last week I think we all agreed that when it comes to issues like these, the idea of allowing the process get to its end, before such a decision is taken, is very instrumental. And I think that the decision of the Supreme Court is welcoming. I mean, the main case basically for the certiorari is that the High Court judge lacked jurisdiction. The argument Matthew Nyindam is making is that if you look at the electoral laws of Ghana, to be able to contest any parliamentary election in court, it should be within 21 days after the results have been gazetted. The argument they make is that the results for Kpandai were gazetted on December 24.
Okay.
And the NDC candidate went to court on January 25, 2025. That is 32 days after the results have been gazetted. And so that it's far beyond the 21 days. We are looking about some 11 days after the 21 days. That is when the NDC went to court. And so they are saying that if you consider it, then the judge didn't have any jurisdiction to hear the matter in the first place. And they are confident in their case because in the Akwatia matter that went to the Supreme Court, there was a contention as to when the Akwatia results were gazetted. At the time, the NPP held a document that said the results were gazetted on January 6, 2025, while the NDC insisted that the results were gazetted on December 24, 2024. The court made a pronouncement and indicated that the document the NDC presented, which is the December 24, 2024 Gazette notice, is actually the date upon which the results were gazetted. And Kpandai, according to the NPP, is in that document. And so they are saying that they are only repackaging the Supreme Court's earlier decision to it. And that is why they are confident that even on January 13 or any day after January 13, when the Supreme Court decides to deliver a judgment on the judicial review application, they would be the victorious party. But the NDC, we are told that the candidate has filed his statement in opposition to the matter, and at this point, I'm sure that he would go through the processes of acquiring the relevant documents and will follow the relevant processes. And on January 13, either the matter will be tabled for hearing, the lawyers will be heard. If the court at that point it may deliver a judgment, and then we will get to know whether or not the Electoral Commission can go back planning the rerun, or they will quash, the Supreme Court will quash the decision of the High Court, which essentially will make any other process flowing out of it a nullity, including the letter from the clerk to Parliament to the Electoral Commission, which essentially declared the seat vacant. And so we await what will happen on January 13, 2026. But what we know is that until then, there's no rerun in Kpandai. The NDC's Tanko says that the Supreme Court has only given them more time to campaign. And so, yes, we can only wait, and direction at which the court will point us to will be there. If there's a need for us to go to Kpandai and report, we'll be there. If not, we'll be in Parliament to hear Martin Yindam make a statement on the floor part.
I say thank you very much. Salom, there are many who have also asked that legally, does it mean that the Supreme Court ruling still, makes Martin Yindam a member of Parliament for the Kpandai constituency?
Well, so what it means is that the decision to declare the seat vacant has been suspended. So the status quo remains. That decision, if a stay of execution, for example, had been secured, that decision would have been stayed, which means the status quo will remain. So what has happened is akin to staying the process. So in many respects, it suspends or it holds the decision, because if you say he's not an MP and so he cannot hold himself as such, then what's the point? Then the people lack representation. He cannot be MP, but you say the election should not happen. Then there's an issue there. So until the election is held, or until the Supreme Court makes a decision or a determination on the matter, the status quo remains. So the MPP went to court in respect of the decision on the rerun by the court and the subsequent declaration of vacancy in Parliament. They went to invoke the supervisory jurisdiction of the court, pursuant to Article 131 of the Constitution. There are many jurisdictions of the Supreme Court. There's original, there is an appellate, there is a supervisory. The supervisory jurisdiction, the High Court also has supervisory jurisdiction over the lower courts. So if you go to the district court, for example, and something happens, you think that the district court acted out of character or acted in excess of jurisdiction or lacked jurisdiction in what it did, you can go to the High Court for a certiorari application. A certiorari will mean that you want to quash the decision of that court, all right? So if it is in the High Court, you go to the Supreme Court, because only 2 courts have the supervisory jurisdiction, the High Court and the Supreme Court. So because it's a High Court, you go to the Supreme Court to invoke their supervisory jurisdiction. And one of the tools available to the parties and the Supreme Court in doing that is what we call the prerogative writs, for example. So certiorari, you've heard of mandamus in the past, etc. All these are available to parties to use. So certiorari is invoked when a number of things happen. So for example, when there's error of the law, there's error of the law, you think that the court acted in a manner that was unlawful. When the court acts in a manner you think was in excess of its jurisdiction, or it lacked jurisdiction to do whatever it did, there's unreasonableness, or there's abuse of power, or there's breach of the natural justice principle, the other party must be heard. You go to court, or you go to the Supreme Court or a court with supervisory jurisdiction to vindicate your rights. So this was what the MPP people did. Their claim is that the High Court acted in excess of jurisdiction, lacked jurisdiction to actually sit on the matter for reasons that Hansen has explained about the gazetting, etc., and when they filed the petition and all of that. That is their claim. Whether the Supreme Court will uphold that or not, we do not know. The Supreme Court is here to pronounce on that. But this is the basis they had for going to the Supreme Court to invoke the supervisory jurisdiction. Now, when you do that, you must serve the party against whom you are proceeding. So that is now, in this case, the NDC candidate. So the MPP filed against the NDC candidate. The NDC candidate had to be located and had to be served. But he could not be located. Gary, the Marco understanding court says, since they declared it, they've not been seeing him. I wonder how he's campaigning, but they said they've not been seeing him. So now they came to court. To the regular service is that I see you and I serve you. If you're acting by a lawyer, your lawyer is served. But if it's an originating process, you serve it on the person. So you have to see the person to serve it. If you can't serve it on the person for whatever reason, the person is not available, it is impracticable to serve the person, the bailiff will have to go back to the registrar of the court and write that for ABA, I've been there 3 times, you should do so 3 times or more. I've been there 3 times, I didn't see him, or he wasn't available, or the conditions around him made it impracticable. Maybe the person has lions around him. You can't approach him, you can't get to him. So the situation made it impracticable for you to serve him. So you are proving non-service. Now the party takes the non-service application, goes back to court, and then tells the court that he wants to substitute the service, the regular service, with something else. So you want to use another means than the regular to serve the person. That's what we call substituted service. So there are many modes. Sometimes the court will tell you, post it on the notice board of the court. In recent times, the court has agreed. There are many cases which have agreed. And now this is also another one that adds to the numerous cases that allow for service through WhatsApp, service through Facebook, service through email, or go to his house, paste it on his wall, go and paste it here, or a place that the person will sometimes, put it in a newspaper, publish it in a newspaper. That's why sometimes when you go through Graphic and Times, etc., you see court things in there. So they are serving the people by substitution. So the court wants to make sure that by all means the person sees it. So you serve the person by substitution. So in this case, the court ordered that the person be served in a number of ways. Serving via WhatsApp or something also came up. That's how come they tried, or they sent the memo to be sure that that's the number. Now the person will be served via WhatsApp. They said they should post it on his house, the High Court notice board, the District Court notice board, and places by all means he will see, or somebody will see and go and tell you. And if he's minded, he will go and check and then enter an appearance, or maybe appear in court, or put his acts together and come to court. And that must remain there for a number of days. In this case, I think 7 days. So that by all means, it's not as if you want to put it there or you want to remove it, because some people do that. You want to post it, the bailiff did it, they will take picture. Once the bailiff leaves, they go to remove it, so that you say, yeah, you did it, but the person didn't come. Maybe the person didn't see it.
But you believe that within that 7 days, the person
would have seen it, because, and the belief also is that it will be there. Sometimes it's about to rain, you go and post it quickly, and the rain will beat it and the thing remove. There are many tricks people use, but this is such a big matter. I'm sure by now he knows. they will post it there, all these places, including his WhatsApp, he will see it. Or he would have been deemed to see it, and he has to make an appearance. If he doesn't go, now you can't say that he was not served or he was not given an opportunity to be heard. You cannot invoke the natural justice principle here that he was not given a hearing. He had been served. But as of today, he can argue that he didn't know about any certiorari because he hadn't been served. So that's what they went to court to do. Unless it's an ex parte application, and if the application or the process is on notice, you have to serve the person. So that's how it works. But I think the Supreme Court did well by coming up with this position. I think it's prevented a situation where we're likely to have an absurd situation on our hands, and also prevented a situation where the Electoral Commission or the election would have overreached the court. Because if the election is on the 30th or so, and the court is sitting on a matter related to the election on the 13th, then why would the court sit on the 13th if the election would have been held already? Perhaps he could have even been sworn in by then, you know. So I think the court acted well. That's how we want our courts to act. The court must act to ensure justice. So in this case, at least for today, Nyindam has justice. We don't know how they will rule on the 13th, but Nyindam has justice now, because we've discussed this many times here, that what will happen if, for example, this guy goes ahead to win the election and the court later rules that Nyindam did not lose the election. What situation will you have on your hands? How would that, what picture will he paint? You know, the court has stepped in at the right time, even though that was not what was before them. People can argue anything, but this is the Supreme Court. It's able to do things like that to restore order and calm, and they have done that. And I think they deserve applause, and we urge them to do more of these things to bring sanity into our space. People don't have to be doing things thinking that the Supreme Court is one-sided or is one-directional, and so we'll do things anyhow. This is right, and I think the Supreme Court must be commended.
Just watching what the papers are saying, coming to you live from our studio here in Accra. This week as well, the Parliament of the Republic passed the Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2025, legalizing motorbikes, or Okada as we call it for commercial purposes, and tricycles, or pragya as we call it, and the abuboyas as we also call it here in Ghana. There are many who have welcomed the passage of the bill and the decision of Parliament to allow the commercialization of motorbikes, pragya and abuboya, because it's going to create jobs. There are others who are also against and are in opposition because they feel that these Okada riders in town are a bit of nuisance, and the way and manner they ride in town, they should not legalize the activities. So there is argument for and against the legalization of the motorbikes or Okada. It was a major campaign promise of the then NDC in opposition. When the party won power through President John Dramani Mahama, the party has been able to fulfill a major campaign promise, and the Okada Riders Association have hailed this passage, saying it is victory for them and that is going to help regulate the Okada industry or the pragya industry here in Ghana. Hansen, the passage of this now is being legalized, the operations. I've heard the president of the Okada Riders Association say that this is victory for them. It is going to help regulate the operations here in Ghana. But how do you find this passage of this bill?
I mean, the whole business around Okada and pragya is necessity driven and demand driven. And I say this because under normal circumstances, I mean, if you look at the risk of using an Okada or a pragya, if the need didn't exist, people were not going to use Okada or pragya. And so issues existed as to the manner in which the space was allowed to operate, because at the time when it was illegal, it had become normalized. I mean, judges, I've had situations where we were told that the judge was late for hearing.
Had to jump on
Okada. There have been MPs who've confessed that they've used Okada before. CEOs, general managers obviously the likes like you and me, and a host of others have used Okada, and the reason they do so is because of necessity. Look at the traffic situation that we have. You need to get to somewhere in 45 minutes. You've planned ahead. You left house very early, but you met an unusual traffic, which you can't miss an opportunity. And so you park and you join the Okada. You make it in time. But the safety problems existed because even when you are seated at the back of the Okada, you pray more than you prayed on Sunday, because the guy is not listening to you, by passing traffic lights, not adhering to road traffic regulations. And so it's not just a matter of legalizing, because as I was saying, the point about the practice exists. It had become a de facto legal thing. I mean, even though it was illegal, in practice we had accepted it. And so the situation is not with just legalizing it. The situation is how you ensure that they adhere to safety regulations and to make sure that our roads are safe, and that the numbers as far as road accident related to Okada riders and Pragya riders will not be on the rise. But beyond this, I mean, when you talk about this, they talk about jobs, then they talk about transport. But you would agree with me that there's an easy way out in these problems, because it doesn't solve the problem in any way. There's still a number of young people willing and able to work, looking for opportunities. There are no opportunities, and so we expect government to go beyond the idea of yes, we've legalized commercial motorcycle business, and so that's going to create jobs. That is not sustainable enough for the number of young people who need jobs. I mean, and this will bring to the point of the government's plan for creating jobs. I think that a great plan of the government was the 24-hour economy, where they christened one job, 3 persons, 3 shifts. I mean, the first year of the government is over. It's left with 3 years, and so we need to begin to see some deliberate measures as far as that job creation platform will be enhanced to create more sustainable jobs. On the transport situation, we've recently seen how people would be at bus stops struggling for public transport. And so we need to look at our public transport system properly. And I think that one thing that this government perhaps would want to avert its mind to is the issue of rail transport within the capital. And I always say that if you have 3 good rail transport lines in the capital, for instance, one from, say, Central Region through Kaswa to Accra, one from, say, Nsawam through to Accra, and then the Tama one, which if you have, say, 3 coaches operating effectively, I think that the way to go. So we need to look at these problems well and find long-lasting solutions.
Salam, finally, a major campaign promise fulfilled by the government.
Well, the Okada situation it has become a necessary evil. I mean, I think it fills an important gap, in our transportation system. We've failed as a people over the years to do the necessary things to ensure, safe mobility across the various places in our country. So when you fail to solve a problem, people have their own ways of solving it. So the Okada business or the Okada phenomenon became one of those. So for example, you have only a lorry system. You don't have rail, you don't have tram, you don't have SkyTrain, you don't have anything. So everybody's using a car.
Yeah.
But there's gridlock. You have to move around. So that is where these Okada people become useful. Sometimes some of our places, the Lungus and all of that, vehicles will not go to those places. Okada people are always at the junction to help you get in there. So there's a need for them. What is important is that they have to be regulated. And there are a lot of them in this business. If you collapse a business, that's a lot of people are throwing out on the street to go look for jobs, which exacerbates already bad unemployment situation. What you have to do is to regulate the trade. How do you regulate it? You ensure that they follow the rules. You ensure that they don't put people's lives in danger. The safety measures must be there. So I think the conversation really is that they will operate within some radius, so that you do not go out of your radius. Their number plates or numbering the plates, the numbering system will change. They will have to register with a union, and they will have to get insurance. If you are not in a helmet, and they say a lot of the helmets they use now are not correct, they will have to use proper helmets which are fit for purpose. And if you don't have helmet for your passenger, you cannot run. And a whole lot of them are following the traffic rules, etc. They say that once these things are done, they formalize them, they bring them into the mainstream, then the insurance company and all those people can deal with them, because as it was illegal, because tricycles, etc., could not be used for the purposes they were used for. So yes, it's okay. What is important is the enforcement of the laws. The laws are there. We know what to do. We must enforce the laws. We must ensure that we educate them also on how to use the roads. You don't ride on the part of the road when you are not supposed to be riding there. There are times these baller tricycles, they are in front of you. Instead of them to move to a side of the road so the cars can flow, they will be there. They can't move very fast, but they are there blocking a lot of people. And when you try to pass them and you see the face of the guy riding the back, he doesn't even care about anybody. He's just focused on his road. Just move aside a bit, towards the periphery of the road, and let the cars use the road. Don't go into the speed lane. They have to be taught these things, and they have to enforce the radius, discussion, so they do not go beyond where they do not have to go, etc. So once these things are done, I think we should be fine. It's come to stay, really. Taking it out now will be very difficult. In fact, you cannot even contemplate
take it out. It's come to
because
stay.
we have failed to solve the problem they are solving. And so that's what it is.
Salom, thank you very much. Hansen, thank you very much. It's been another exciting edition of What the Papers Are Saying that came to you live from our studios here in Accra. I am Sammy Riafit. So we come your way again. May the good Lord be with us all.